Jerusalem Online, I'm Mike Greenspan. We come to you on the eve of Sukkot, the Jewish Feast of Tabernacles. As in days of old, some Israelis are wondering this year where they'll be making their homes the next. That question was close to the heart of a game of diplomatic cat and mouse that was played out this week on two distinctly different levels in two Middle East locations. In Damascus, where Syrian President Hafez al-Assad dangled the prospect of peace with Israel before his parliament in a televised speech watched by Israeli leaders. And on the Golan Heights, where Israeli settlers sent their leaders and President Assad a different message, protesting plans to withdraw from the Golan in return for peace. What price should Israel pay for peace? Disagreements on that issue could bring about a split in Yitzhak Rabin's ruling Labor Party. We'll take a probing look at the latest developments on this week's Look at the People and the Stories Behind the News. What's more, treasures from the Jewish past on sale in Tel Aviv. The latest Sothebys auction includes items from people saved by Oskar Schindler, he of the famous List. And the desert fruit that the world's been waiting for, Israeli Sabras, now in living color. But first, it's his second war for the Golan Heights. As a member of the Israeli Army Armored Corps in 1973, Avigdor Kahalani defended the Golan from Syrian attack. Now, 21 years later, the Syrians want the Golan back in return for peace. And now, as a member of the ruling Labor Party in Israel's parliament, Kahalani is fighting to keep the Golan under Israeli control. And in the process, he's defying party leader Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin. Welcome, Avigbdor Kahalani.
Hi.
Well, you've finished your political basic training, and now you're really fighting a war. You've come to our studio from a meeting of the Labor Party faction in Knesset, and I imagine it was not a very pleasant meeting.
It was very hard, the conversation with the Prime Minister. He tried to convince us to follow him with the decision that he will continue the peace treaty with Syria. And our feeling is he's going to withdraw from all the Golan Heights. And I'm really don't agree with this idea, and I'm fighting against him and try to convince him in another way.
Some people say your war with the government may be as difficult as your war in the Golan. After all, you and a few members of the Labor Party have really staged what amounts to a rebellion, and one that could be very dangerous for the Labor Party. Not only could it scuttle Yitzhak Rabin's diplomatic plans, but it could weaken Labor's control of Parliament. Is it possible that your emotional attachment to the Golan, for which you have fought, is clouding your political judgment?
I don't think so. I know that I lost many soldiers in the Golan Heights, and I feel something. I was the commander of the Golan Heights. But this is not my point of view about the situation. I don't trust the Syrian. I don't believe to the President Assad. And my feeling that he is going to achieve the Golan Heights without war, and we should stay in the Golan Heights. We had in our program during the campaign, we promised to the nation that we should stay in the Golan Heights even in the peacetime. And this is what Mr. Rabin said. And what I'm trying to do is to follow what we have said 2 years ago. And this is the reason that I'm trying to really to convince the nation about the withdrawing from Golan Heights.
You've summed up your feelings about the Golan Heights in time of war in your book called The Heights of Courage, a tank leader's war on the Golan. But that war is in the past, and in the future, and in the present for that matter, is a peace process in the Middle East, what's being called a comprehensive peace process, meaning that the intention is for Israel to end this process at peace with all of its neighbors. Is a comprehensive peace possible without Syria?
No, I don't think so. I'm looking for peace. I fought a lot in our country, many wars. I was in the hospital a year, 16 operations of my body. I lost my brother. My wife, she lost 2 brothers. I lost most of my friends. We are looking for peace. But we want peace, and we want security about our life. And the peace that we try to create with Syria, it means that we are moving from Golan Heights in 3 years. This is not peace from my point of view.
We'll talk about some possible compromises on the way to peace, but before we do, let's take a look at the Golan Heights, and let's listen to some Israelis who live on and below the heights and hear some of their points of view concerning what to do with the heights. More in this report.
Often called Israel's northern playground, the Golan Heights are best known for their natural beauty. Spectacular waterfalls and deep canyons make them a hiker's paradise. Snow-covered Mount Hermon is Israel's only winter sports resort. For an entire generation of young Israelis, the Golan is also the only place they call home. For their parents, who moved to the Golan believing it was essential to Israel's future and security, the thought of leaving is painful and, for many, unthinkable. Yet that is exactly what some or all of the Jewish residents of the Golan Heights could be asked to do if peace talks with the Syrians move forward. The government of Israel has not ruled out a territorial compromise that could include the evacuation of settlements. There are few issues that so divide Israelis, and many of those opposing any pullback on the Golan are making their voices heard. The Jewish communities of Israel's Galilee region suffered for years under the threat of Katyusha rockets and artillery shells fired upon them from Syrian strongpoints on the Golan. Arik Lebowski lives in Yesod HaMa'ala, in the very shadow of the heights.
Till the Six-Day War, 67, it's nearly impossible to stay in our village. Twice a week, a rocket or a Katyusha from the Golan Heights. Always damages and blood.
In 1967's Six-Day War, Israel responded to a Syrian attack and captured the Golan Heights. A 19-year-long nightmare came to an end. For the first time in their lives, the residents of Kibbutz Tel Taqsir and other communities that had lived under the Syrian guns discovered the meaning of security. Bomb shelters became playgrounds for children. The 482 square miles of the Golan Heights comprise a very small area, 44 miles long, 15 miles wide. Small enough to fit into the state of Texas 553 times. Less than half the size of America's smallest state, Rhode Island. Tel Facher draws numerous tourists each day. From strong points like this, the Syrians terrorized Israeli settlements in the valley below. From here, it's easy to understand the threat to Israel, should Syria again gain control of the Golan in time of war. Stephanie Shlomi from Jerusalem recalls that Israel's parliament passed a law annexing the Golan during Menachem Begin's term as prime minister.
Well, first, the government annexed it, and second, I think that as they say, that the Golan is the eyes of the country to a certain extent, and they just, you know, security-wise, they wouldn't give it back.
Another aspect of the debate over the Golan concerns water. From Israel's establishment until the 1967 war, the Syrians attempted to divert the streams flowing from the Golan down into the Sea of Galilee, one of arid Israel's principal water sources.
Even if it will be bitter, and terrible demonstrations will be in Galilee if the Golan Heights will be back. But personally, I think, from practical experience, let us give a part of the Golan Heights back only to have some shalom in our area.
So what about it? Is territorial compromise a prescription for peace or an invitation to disaster? What was once a national consensus, that the Golan would never go back to Syria, is now a national dilemma. On one side, claims of national security and defense. On the other, hope for change and peace. Each side fervently believes in the justice of its viewpoint. Neither envisions any other option. All agree the decision will be fateful for Israel's future.
The Golan Heights now on the negotiating table, it appears, between Israel and Syria. More about the Heights and a man who wants to stop Israel from giving them away when Jerusalem Online continues. Jerusalem Online continues now. We're talking about the Golan Heights. We're talking about them with Avigdor Kahalani, he who fought for the Heights in 1973 as a soldier in the Israeli army, and who now, as a member of Israel's parliament, is fighting to stop Yitzhak Rabin's government from trading them away for peace with Syria. Yitzhak Rabin wants to convince you and other Israelis that you're wrong. You say you don't trust the Syrians. Many other Israelis don't trust them either. So Rabin's suggesting a middle ground. He's saying, let's not give the entire Heights back to Syria. If the newspaper reports are correct, he's saying, let's stage a partial withdrawal for a 3-year trial period, and then, after the 3 years are up, we'll see how things are going. What's wrong with trying Rabin's formula, one step at a time?
You have to understand that this formula, he has to show all the nation before he will sign this about this kind of formula. And what is going to be after 3 years? He has to sign before the 3 years, that after the 3 years we should withdraw from all the Golan Heights. This will be part from the agreement. The 3 years can show us how is the relationship between us and Syria. This is not enough. We don't know who is going to follow Assad. Maybe it's his brother, Rifar Assad, and everybody know what his brother think about him. And this is really a complicated situation. This is not a democratic country, and we need, I think, one generation at least to see how the people, they so hate Israel, they don't trust us, they don't want to live with us, they maybe disappear from the area, and maybe the next generation we can live together and share the area together.
You know, even people who might agree with you might say to you something like this: okay, we can't trust the Syrians, but on the other hand, is it strategic depth on the ground that makes the difference in terms of protecting Israel? After all, the Gulf War demonstrated the effect of long-range ballistic missiles and what they could do to Israel. So does Israel really need this small piece of ground?
I have to remind you, in the Gulf War, the Americans, they have shot all over Iraq for 39 days. Nothing happened. Just when the Americans start to move with their ground forces, after 100 hours, they finish the war. This is exactly what will happen in the future in Israel. We need the Golan Heights to protect the nation. There is no trade from SCAD. It's a lot of damage. The trade is come from ground forces. Ground forces can come through the Golan Heights. This is the reason that we have to be there.
If, despite everything you think and other Israelis who agree with you think, Yitzhak Rabin decides tomorrow in talks with the Syrians to deal away the heights in return for peace, what do you do then?
We will go to referendum, and what I'm trying to do now is to convince the nation this is the wrong way, and I try to convince Mr. Rabin to find another way, to find the way that we should stay there with the villages, kibbutzes, and 13,000 people, they live there. They are really pioneers. It's just to think about the idea to take them away from their house, and we send them to be there by the government decision, and now we'll tell them go back to the Hula Valley and Jordan Valley. This is really, really a bad situation for us.
Avigdor Kahalani, a soldier in war and in politics, fighting a new battle for the Golan Heights. Thanks for joining us. Well, the war for peace is keeping Israeli politicians on edge. When we return, some Jewish history hits the auction block right after this.
Jerusalem Online Headlines, I'm Carolyn Benetton. November 1st is the new target date set by the Palestinian Authority for self-rule elections in the autonomous areas. Palestinians are pressuring their leaders to establish democratic rule as soon as possible. Palestinian Authority Chairman Yasser Arafat is said to feel that any further delays of the voting process would be a threat to his personal mandate. A conference in Jerusalem called Creating Peace is bringing together artists and writers from Morocco as well as other Arab states. The participants will join Israeli and Palestinian intellectuals to express their feelings and desires for peace. The event is sponsored by Israel's President, Ezra Weizmann. Cash registers were ringing during the high holidays, Israel's biggest gift-giving season. Stores did up to 18% more business this month, with an overall 27% increase in purchases over last year. And it was easy to spend money. Stores stayed open extra hours, and customers could fax or phone in their orders, and of course, easy credit terms. And speaking of gifts, stores are already planning for the assault. Yes, Power Rangers, the hottest selling action toy in the States, are coming to Israel. And it looks like the mania will repeat itself here. 18 companies have already signed merchandising rights in areas ranging from food to cosmetics. And kids are already setting the VCR for the Power Ranger television series set to air in October. And thumbs up and down for Israel's phone company, Bezeq. First, a Bezeq spokesman says he never saw those controversial commercials before they aired in the States. The advertising spots were aimed at encouraging American Jews to call friends and family in Israel to say Happy New Year. The problem is the commercials featured what many felt was a stereotypical and insulting portrayal of a Jewish woman. The company, which spent almost $200,000 on the campaign, has apologized and says they will exercise greater sensitivity in the future. But Bezik is scoring points with its Mother's Voice program, which allows soldiers alone here during the holidays to call their families living abroad for free. Not as good as getting a care package, but the next best thing. I'm Carolyn Benetton for Jerusalem Online.
We are back. It happens twice a year. The Israeli branch of the world-famous Sothebys auction house invites the world to come to Tel Aviv, where it serves up some rare articles of Judaica and fine art to the highest bidders. Joining me now, as she does from time to time, to tell us about some of the more interesting objects up for bids is Israel Director of Sothebys, Rivka Saker. Welcome, Rivka. What's the headline of this September sale?
The Judaica sale is a very special one. It has just a small group of items, but very rare and important.
And some of them you brought along, including this manuscript, which you told me before we began is valued at $1 million. What is it?
It's an extremely rare 14th century manuscript from Catalonia, which is an anthology of 6 astrological and scientific parts. And as you can see in these pages, it includes all the zodiac signs and all the heavenly constellations.
So it's a guidebook to astrology written on parchment in somebody's hand, obviously, not printed.
And 1360 to 1364. It has signs also from different theories, not only the Jewish theories.
It's really beautiful. You have other manuscripts, I know. We won't have time to get into them. And you've also brought along some objects of silver ceremonial art. What do you have?
Right. We have here a Dutch Torah finials from the second part of the 18th century.
Now, these are the things that go on top of the Torah scrolls, on the end of the posts, right?
Yeah.
Very beautiful. With bells. And what else?
And we have 2 items here. One is the beakers that has the Rothschild coat of arms, and the 19th century Dutch Torah shield, which is decorated with diamonds and rubies. And a special item that I've brought with me.
A Torah crown.
Torah crown, right? Italian Torah crown from around 1800, which depicts very beautifully the symbols of the temple, the showbread table, the scent tables, the tablets, the menorah.
Very lovely. And I have on my side of the table something else that qualifies as Judaica, though it's something else. Again, what are we looking at here? It looks just like a piece of modern graphic art.
As Judaica includes not only ritual objects and manuscript, but also things to deal with Jewish life, this is a drawing done by Joseph Bau, one of the people saved by Schindler and
Oscar Schindler during World War II.
And his story appears also in the film, The Schindler List.
Good. So it's quite a range of articles. Tell me, Rivka, who is it who comes and buys these things? Is it Israelis or people from abroad?
Now, after 10 years of sales, we really have a very diversified clientele. A lot of collectors will come from all over the place.
So Israel is really earning itself a place on the world art circuit.
Absolutely.
And you're not selling only Judaica.
No, our main sales, money-wise, actually, are the painting sales, which offer works by a lot of Jewish artists from the École de Paris, like Chagall, Soutine, and Kisling, and also Israeli art of Reuben Rubin, the established artist, and as well as young artists like Rafi Lavi and Yair Garbuz.
Rivka, every time you come by to visit us, I'm amazed by the wealth of art that's still out there, that's still being either discovered or put on sale by previous owners, and so much of it comes through Sothebys, which is now celebrating not only its 10th Israeli anniversary, but its 250th anniversary worldwide. Rivka Saker, thanks for celebrating the event with us. Your comments, questions, and suggestions are the lifeblood of the Jerusalem Online POB. Do keep them coming in and keep them coming to this address. Jerusalem Online, POB 33003 in Jerusalem. 33003 is the POB in Jerusalem. We can be faxed at country code 972-2381-658, 972-2381-658. Do make a point of telling us when and on what station you watch this program. And we'll be back with a Sabra of a different color right after this. We continue now. Native-born Israelis, you may or may not know, are known sometimes as Sabras. They're nicknamed for the fruit of a particular cactus they supposedly take after, meaning they're prickly on the outside but tender and soft-hearted within. Here's a Sabra right now. Now, if eating a cactus fruit sounds like something you'd only wish on your worst enemy, consider this. Sidewalk vendors hawk these little things to Israelis on street corners around the country. And now some innovative Israeli agro-technology could turn those so-called prickly pears into the latest designer food in your neighborhood. More about that from agronomist Itamar Glazer. Welcome, Itamar. What got into your head that made you decide to develop green and red and orange and yellow sabras? What's the idea?
We found out that this Sabra fruits are much more colorful, much more attractive, and make it a much better product to penetrate the markets of the Western world. While the regular Sabra that we were used to was more or less used here in Israel or among the natives, I would say, the Sabras.
Well, even the regular Sabra wouldn't sound too regular to a lot of people, so now, for the benefit of our audience, I'm going to demonstrate the proper method of peeling and consuming one of these things. You take your Sabra, hopefully you've had someone remove the little thorns first, and then you cut it twice, once around the top, which has been done for me by my director, who's an expert Sabra peeler, and then once around the bottom, right? And you just chop that off, because you don't want that part of the Sabra or this part. Okay, and then you make a cut right here along the side, not too deep, and you take the knife, and without cutting your finger off, you just peel back the skin, and it comes right off, hopefully, around the Sabra. And what you're left with is the fruit inside, which really is soft, and I'm going to now demonstrate that it's also delicious. Sweet, cool, very refreshing. It truly is. Now, these colored Sabras are actually based on immigrant Sabras collected from around the world, and you've combined them and created a new strain here. How many different colors can you create?
It's about 12 colors ranging from a dark red to orange or yellow.
And do the new colorful Sabras taste any different from the old ones? In other words, let me try a red one and see if it tastes different from the green one. Yeah, it's sweeter.
It could be that some of them contain higher amount of sugars, but in overall, these crosses that we made introduce the amount of nutritions in the Sabra, and they just taste the same or better.
Well, a farmer named Noam Bloom is growing Sabras in all the colors of the rainbow on an experimental plot about 150 acres, which is really just a beginning. This is supposed to become a big business if all goes well. A big business based on people who are willing to spend big bucks for designer fruit, or is this a fruit that most people will be able to afford? What's the idea?
As it stands now, it is going to be marketed to Europe, to people who are willing to pay a high price for a unique or exotic fruits. But eventually, when the plantations will expand to larger quantities, it will be available for other markets and will be and hopefully it will be part of the natural diet of many nations.
So you and your compatriots are obviously hoping that the next time company comes over, the host or hostess will say, here, have a cactus. And Itamar, have a cactus, and thanks for joining us. And the next time you're up for something different, bite into a Sabra. So, the next time you're hankering for something different, not only should you bite into a Sabra, but you should stick around, because we're going to be back next week with more of the different people and the different stories behind the news from Israel. You find them here every week right here on Jerusalem Online. I'm Mike Greenspan. Till then, Shalom and Chag Sameach. Happy holiday. Bye.